I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Thank you very much for your time today. The name of this nonprofit tutorial is Filing IRS Form 990 Information Returns. Again, I'm Susan Woods. I'm a nonprofit consultant and I own Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. I started a nonprofit organization myself in 2003. I managed two programs underneath the nonprofit organization for 10 years. I also complete the 501c3 nonprofit applications for people across the United States, as well as facilitate online classes and in person classes. I earned three nonprofit management certificates, one from Duke University, one from Wake Forest University, and one from Winthrop University. I am also a three-time graduate of Winthrop University in Rock Hill, South Carolina. I earned a Master of Business Administration degree, a Master of Arts and Teaching degree, and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration degree. You can find me at www.trustsusanwoods.com. You can call me directly at 704 968 2769, or you can follow me on Facebook at Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions. Again, I'm Susan Woods of Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and here are some of my services. Like I stated, I facilitate in person nonprofit classes primarily on the first and third Saturdays of each month. On the first Saturday of the month, I facilitate my grant writing masterclass. On the third Saturday of each month, I facilitate one of the four fundamental nonprofit classes. The fundamental nonprofit classes are one, how to start 501c3 nonprofit organizations, two, how to fund 501c3 nonprofit organizations, three, how to manage 501c3 nonprofit organizations, and four, how to sustain 501c3 nonprofit organizations. I teach those classes in a series on the third Saturday of each month. I also facilitate online nonprofit classes. Most of the time, I facilitate them in this manner, where I consider this as an on demand class. You just click on it and you start learning independently. Sometimes, though, I do teach live online classes as well. I have a YouTube channel rather. It's called Susan Woods Nonprofit Solutions, and I do have free classes there. Again, I provide 501c3 startup services for clients across the United States. I just mailed my 102nd application packet to a client, and I've been doing this since 2010. My approval rating from the IRS is 100%. I also provide 501c3 reinstatement services for people who have lost their 501c3 status when the IRS automatically revoked their status due to not filing the appropriate Form 990 information return for 3 consecutive years. So, what is the Form 990 information return that we're talking about in this short class today, or in this tutorial today? What is the Form 990 information return? Well, the Form 990 information return is the primary tool the IRS uses for gathering information about tax exempt nonprofit organizations, educating organization about tax law requirements, and for promoting compliance practices. The Form 990 information return is required of all nonprofit organizations, regardless of the amount of money the nonprofit organization generates. Mandatory annual filing requirements. As I said, all nonprofit organizations are required to file the appropriate Form 990 information return each and every year. All tax exempt organizations must file the appropriate Form 990 information returns annually. It does not matter if the organization generated revenues or not. Let me pause here for just one moment. Prior to 2006, The IRS did not mandate organizations that earned or generated less than $5,000 to file the Form 990 information return. You just didn't have to do it. And because you didn't do it, it was assumed that you didn't qualify or you did not meet the requirements to having to file. Well, it took a while, but a loophole was discovered because some people stated they didn't earn the $5,000 or just didn't file because they claimed to not have earned the $5,000 when in fact they did. So in 2006, the IRS implemented this policy that it doesn't matter if you have zero revenues, you must file the appropriate Form 990 information return. For example, let me give you a personal example. I have a nonprofit organization called Comprehensive Community Based Solutions Incorporated. Like I stated before, I started it in 2003, officially designated it in 2006. I do not operate any programs under my nonprofit organization right now. The last time we operated programs under the nonprofit organization was in 2013. We stopped offering programs December 31st, 2013. However, I still file a Form 990 information return each year so that I can retain my 501c3 status just in case I decide I want to operate programs underneath my nonprofit organization in the future. So I just filed the appropriate Form 990 information return every year, stipulating a zero revenue generation, stipulating that I did not generate any revenues for the prior year. What are the three major types of IRS Form 990 information returns? I keep stating that you want to file the appropriate Form 990 information return, but what are the types of Form 990 information returns? Okay, let's see. Types of Form 990s. There are three major types of IRS Form 990 information returns. Form 990 information return types are, like I said, three major types. Here we go. Number one, Form 990N, also known as the e-postcard, Form 990EZ, and the Form 990. These are the three major types of Form 990 information returns. There is a fourth type called the Form 990 PF, which means private foundation. I don't discuss the private foundation Form 990 in this lesson because that's not my specialty. So, what are the IRS Form 990 filing guidelines and reporting due dates? Now, this is very important information. We're talking about the IRS Form 990 filing guidelines and reporting due dates. This is important information because this is what's going to allow you to retain your 501c3 status over the years. So the IRS Form 990 information returns filing guidelines are as follows. Let's look at this table. You have types in one column, gross receipts in the second column, and assets in the third column. Okay? So in column one, you have the Form 990N, which is also called the e-postcard. You can use the Form 990N or e-postcard if your gross receipts are $0 to $49,999. And it doesn't matter about the assets because if you have gross receipts in that amount, you probably won't have enough assets to list here or to consider. The Form 990EZ. Now you will use the Form 990EZ if your gross receipts are between $50,000 and $199,999 and your assets are less than $500,000. Now, gross receipts include all of the revenue you've generated in the past year. That includes grant writing, fundraising, donations, if you charge a fee for your services, any if you sold products, any gross the gross receipts represent any revenue or all revenue that you've generated for the prior year. Assets, of course, are the tangible items that you have in your organization to provide the services that you provide. For example, a van would be a tangible asset if you own it to transport people from place to place if that's a service that you provide. Supplies, maybe you have a youth development program and you have some computer equipment or some paper or pens or anything. Those are assets. So you have to put a value on those assets to determine what type of nonprofit, I'm sorry, to determine what type of Form 990 you should complete. The third type of Form 990 is the plain old Form 990, and it's if you have gross receipts in the amount of $200,000 or more and assets in the amount of $500,000 or more. That's the type of Form 990 you would complete if you fall into this category. So, if I were you, I would print this table and then compare this information to the information that you create or you calculate regarding your gross receipts and the value that you put on your assets. And those determinations will guide you in selecting the appropriate Form 990 to choose to submit to the IRS or to file to the IRS. Okay, so we have one more important concept to talk about, and that is when do you file? When do you file your Form 990 information returns? When are they due? The Form 990 information returns are due by the 15th day of the fifth month after your fiscal year ends. So I'm going to pause and let you read that a few times and let it sink in. Okay, so let's read it again. The Form 990 information returns are due by the 15th day of the fifth month after your fiscal year ends. So the first thing you will need to know is when your fiscal year ends. When does your fiscal year end? Most people's fiscal year ends on December the 31st because they use just a regular old calendar year as their fiscal year. But you do have some nonprofits that have fiscal years that end on June the 30th, some September the 30th. So it all depends. But whatever month your fiscal year ends, you have to count from that month to determine when you need to submit your Form 990 information return. Here's an example. For example, if your fiscal year ends on December 31st, then your Form 990 information return is due by May 15th of the next year because that's 5 months and 15 days from December 31st. 5 months and 15 days from the fiscal year end, which is December 31st, equals May 15th of the next year. I have a little another calendar or another guide, if you will, that you can print and use as a reminder. And here it is. If your fiscal year ends January 31st, then your 990 return is due June 15th. If your fiscal year ends February 28th, then your 990 is due July the 15th. And again, the example that I used before, if your fiscal year ends December 31st, then your 990 is due May 15th. I provided this guide so that you won't have to try to calculate and remember. Here it is right in front of you so that you can reference when needed. This lady looks like she's pretty frustrated, and completing the Form 990 information returns can be a frustrating experience if you allow it. I'm just going to be frank and let you know that when I operated my nonprofit organization and we generated revenues past the 990 EZ level, we hired a CPA firm that specialized in nonprofit organizations to do our paperwork for us or to submit the appropriate Form 990 information return on our behalf because this is not my passion. Accounting isn't my passion. It's not something that I look forward to doing. I wanted to do the work of the nonprofit. So we just delegated that task to an organization well equipped to provide that service for us. That's a decision that you would have to make for yourself, though. Here's a warning. If you miss filing your IRS Form 990 information return by the due date for three consecutive years, the IRS revokes your 501c3 status automatically. There's no question, there's no discussion, there's no nothing. Your status is automatically revoked if you miss filing your Form 990 information return by the due date for three consecutive years. So this is important.